This is just an observation that I think I heard people talk about loosely. I'm not sure if it was fully talked about. Someone somewhere most likely talked about this, blah blah blah. This is my take on it, even if someone else talked about it. You could argue the post-time skip arcs of One Piece are about the 7 deadly sins. I'll start with the easy one. Elbaf is pride, Wano is wrath, Whole Cake is gluttony, and Egghead is greed. From the recent chapter, Elbaf's pride could be their downfall, depending on what Emo is doing to them. We don't know if it's actual control, or Emo is just letting their pride get the better of them. In Wano, Kaido was just all fight. He wanted to be beaten by someone, or make an army big enough to take over the world, or something. I'm still not quite sure what his main goal was. Whole Cake is self-explanatory. Think about the arc for 2 seconds and it's super clear. And I combined Zoe with Whole Cake. You can debate that. In Egghead, Vegapunk's only personality that betrayed him was greed. Now, the arcs that are kind of a stretch. Dressrosa is envy, Punk Hazard is sloth, and Fishman Island is lust. Dressrosa is envy because Dofi wanted to return to being a celestial dragon. He wanted to be a king and he did whatever it took to do it. Even when he killed his father and took his head and brought it to them, they would not allow him to be a celestial dragon again, and he vowed to destroy the world because he envied them. Fishman Island is lust because Vanderdecken wanted to marry Shirahoshi, so his lust got the better of him. Also, Sanji getting his nosebleeds was prominent in the arc when he saw a woman. Punk Hazard as sloth because Caesar didn't really have the motivation to do anything. Yeah, he was kind of trying to make kids giant, and he made the nuke, but it didn't feel like he really cared about anything. He didn't have a dream of his own. He was just working for Big Mom and Dofi. I admit that's my weakest argument for sloth. These are the broad themes of the arcs. Of course, you can dive deeper into them to get more nuanced. I just explained one part of the sins, but the second part of the 7 deadly sins is the 7 heavenly virtues, or just 7 virtues. Basically the opposite of the sins. How the arcs got resolved is the other part. The virtue of pride is humility. Humility is characterized by a modest and unassuming attitude, a willingness to serve others, and a recognition of one's own limitations and dependence on God. We don't know how Elbaf will end, but if this theory is true, then Emu's pride will be what his or her downfall is. Yes, Emu, not the giants. Pride is considered the original and worst sin, so it makes sense that Oda brought Emu in for this. It seems like humility will be the way to defeat Emu, in this arc at least. According to the explanation I read earlier, a modest and unassuming attitude almost exactly maps onto Luffy, so I doubt Emu can flip him, but everything else in this interpretation doesn't really fit Luffy. There's too many theories that can be made on how this arc gets resolved, so I'm just gonna move on. The virtue of greed is charity, which is basically being selfless. In Egghead, they escape by Emeth using the Haki knot and sacrificing himself to let the others leave. Also, Kuma giving his life so that Bonnie could be cured. The virtue of wrath is patience. Luffy had a whole Rio training arc where he had to keep a level head and focus while fighting. The land of Wano had to wait years for this time to come before they could fight Kaido again. The virtue of greed is temperance. Having self-control, Luffy promised not to eat anything until Sanji came back to the crew. Similar to Wano, he had to control his emotions to keep up with Katakuri and learn future sight. The virtue of envy is kindness. Now we're in the hard part of this theory. In Dressrosa, I guess I would say the kindness of the crew freeing the country and turning all the people that were toys back to human, which led to them getting a grand fleet. Dofi's dad trying to live with the common folk, even though that super backfired. The virtue of sloth is diligence, basically hard work. The Straw Hat's commitment to help the children. This one is really broad, so next. The last virtue of lust is chastity. This one is interesting to me because it doesn't just mean no sex. It's more like integrity. Sticking to your morals is what I would say. Shirahoshi not hating Hody even when she knew he was the one that killed Orihime. Luffy and crew had to wait for the right moment to actually save the island. They couldn't just go and beat Hody. Like I said, the last 3 are my weakest arguments. Maybe you could come up with better arguments or even change the sins around to what arc you think fits them better. Hopefully I at least gave you something to think about. I didn't feel like going back to pre-time skip to see if he did the same thing or something similar. This video wasn't meant to be a super in-depth deep dive of all the themes of sins and virtues. It was just a quick video just to let people think about, you know? The next question is, what is he going to broadly theme the final arc as?